This episode is brought to you by CK Lin Mindset Coaching for leaders, entrepreneurs, and high achievers. Whatever neurotic thoughts, persistent anxieties, unhealthy obsessions you have are interfering with your decision-making ability. More than holding you back from building a high-impact organization, these neurotic thoughts are costing your confidence, health, relationships, and fun. Having a clear mind will empower you to tap into your true potential and achieve extraordinary results with more ease and freedom. If you're ready for and committed to a full transformation, visit www.talkwithck.com and apply for a free clarity session today.
Yeah, what came through really strong was the question of who am I? Yeah. Like, who are you? That was a question that just came through. And I'm like, no, that's too big of a question. Moving on, next.
Bless you.
Ooh, yeah. Anyway, that's the question.
I'm really excited to have my friend Jose Caballer to be with us today. He is a designer, agency owner, former agency owner, consultant, entrepreneur, advisor, and now stepping into being a spiritual teacher.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So welcome to the show, Jose.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Before we started recording, we actually started talking about reinvention. So tell us a little bit about your journey of reinventing yourself over and over again.
Yeah, I was thinking about a tattoo yesterday, and I want to just tattoo the word "again" on my forearm, so I can see it every day and say, "Oh, again." And then she said, "Why don't you just do an infinity symbol?" I'm like, "Oh, that might be a little bit more efficient." Because I think reinvention is a constant. You're reinventing yourself every day. Right, when you wake up, with the intentions that you have for the day, with the things that happen that day. All of those things form your life, right? So this idea of reinvention in our society is a taboo, that you need to stick to one thing, but data shows that the average career someone has in the West is 7, or in the US. So for me, like when I decided to go from being a designer to being an agency owner, that was what I thought it was the next step, like my assumption and my naiveness. Once I grew the agency, my assumption is that there's this success or something that you get to. And when I realized that you have to do it again and again and again. And if I had to choose to do it again, what would I do differently? So that's when I started shifting away from the agency model and started teaching online, right? Because I knew education was something that was a big thing. And I also intuitively felt underneath it all that there was a bigger purpose attached to it that was part of my own narrative and my own ancestry. I didn't know what that was yet, but I reinvented myself over and over again.
How long ago was that?
That was 6-7 years ago when I was 39. So the suspicion at that point was there was something bigger, and it had nothing to do with what kind of company I was going to have. So I allowed myself to go into this state of flux for these last 6 years that allowed me almost to do continuous reinvention on an ongoing basis, both in the spiritual realm, like yoga and meditation and going to India and exploring plant medicine. Like I went full on into that experiment of my life. I welcomed it. I pursued it vigorously. I invested in it financially. I really took it. And then at the same time, I was starting my own company and teaching online, and it was becoming successful, and it became the school that I started became the future, because the empowerment of our own community of designers in the realm of their businesses was somehow for me awesome, in that I was helping people like myself. And then as I did it, I began to notice a pattern or a trend that a lot of the people that were transitioning had an additional desire or need. And it was meaning transitioning from maybe working as a freelancer and wanting to grow an agency. They all shared the same kind of value or values, that they didn't want to do it the same way that their parents did it or that the old system did it. So as I started to track that in the intentions of the people around me, I realized that was my own intention also. That I wanted meaning and purpose for my own career, for my own life. And that my ancestry of who I was and born to be was part of it. I'm from Latin America. I'm the son of a pastor. I grew up in a very evangelical and religious kind of family. So spirituality and God have always been a big part of my life. And as I explored, like I said, and invested in this other realm of looking at spirituality from both the objective and the subjective, from what does science say, like reading Robert Lanza's book on biocentricity is the title of the book, where he talks about, as a neurobiologist, the research he conducted was in where does phenomena happen, to who is reality happening. And in his research over and over again, the conclusion at the end was that all reality is subjective to the consciousness experiencing it. He really breaks it down to the science, to the like molecular science of the phenomenon. Like sound is when the impact of the tree falling, it creates a vibration. And some things can sense that, some things can't. So a snail in the forest experiencing that is experiencing a totally different event than you would be if you were there.
Right, because
the scale, their sensory system, everything is different. Yeah. So he concludes the book with basically like, at the end, the only explanation to anything beyond this is spirituality. Is a spiritual. The same conclusion that Einstein, and the same conclusion that Tesla, the same conclusion that most scientists who know and understand the code, they all know that at the end, the rest is, you can only explain it in one way. And it's no explanation ultimately. It's that you have to feel it. Anyway, I don't know what the heck that thread was there, but
reinvention.
Reinvention, yeah. The reinvention is a continual process of redesigning and defining, prototyping, and saying out loud your reality over and over again. So for me, to end the cycle of reinvention, but I'm in a very conscious and present state of knowing that it's not about creating my next big thing. It's really about who am I in that. My own healing, my own letting go, my own completion, my own courage. You become aware and clear that you create everything around you. A lot of people think that the external is what does it. That person that's going to give me that deal or that whatever work that I need to do. All those things are part of it. But ultimately, our primary responsibility is to heal ourselves and develop ourselves. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Let me share my personal experience. When I first started this whole journey, I wanted to go on this success path, right? Becoming an engineer and becoming a PhD and then becoming a director for the University of California system, and then becoming an entrepreneur. And then there's some ideas that I have about arrival. When I get there, then I've arrived, then life is better, then I'll be all set then. And the more work that I do for myself, the more I realize the success really is the progress, the growth that I allow myself to be in the journey. There is no arrival, because we all know, I mean, for me, the arrival is the time that I die and I cease to exist. And that ultimately is the final arrival. And it's beautiful, and that we're going to go back to source and we're going to experience absolute truth again, the alpha and the omega then. So in the meantime, what I ought to focus on is the effort that I put in, is who I know myself to be, is what I discover about myself in the process. So then, knowing that, then I just stop giving a fuck about what
other people think and what arriving is going to look like.
And it's been a great journey.
Yeah, I watched you from afar, and I gotta say, kudos on taking it.
So let me ask you this. How did you find the courage to not stick to the least resistant path?
You know, I'm going to be really honest in that I've never really shared this with anybody. And it has both psychological and spiritual connotations to it. My therapist in New York kind of told me that for people that lose a parent early on, they don't believe that they themselves are going to last that long. So I lost my mom when I was 33. And when she was 33, I was 12. And so in my little brain, I was in this mad dash for cash because I knew that I wouldn't live longer than 33. You know what I mean? When I was towards the end of my 30s, I was like, wait a minute, shit. I'm still here.
Right.
What's going on? So that mortality and that like trauma-based programming that I had of like, this is it, motherfuckers. We got to do something about something, right? So I always lived in this whatever seems big. So I ended up in the dot-com boom in New York City, and I got to see the birth of like an era from the inside. Like I like if people knew the things that I've seen, whew, the books we could write. And then when I started my own agency, like early in the 2000s, it was again in the precursor of the social era, which started to kind of pop in 2004, around there, 2005, 2007, when Facebook finally went full on for everyone. So there was this sense of the impetus of history and the prescience of what was coming. And part of it was reading. I love to read. So I would read books like A Whole New Mind, Why Right Brainers Will Own the Future. And Daniel Pink talks about the role the designers are going to play in the future. And I'm like, oh my God, who's going to prepare these people? So I said, let me start a company that prepares those people. So and he wrote it in his book. When he signed it for me, I told him that I had started my previous business from his previous book, Free Agent Nation. The group, remember, was originally a collective, right? I got that idea from his book, which said everybody was going to be freelance. I go, well, if you're all freelance, why don't we all work together on projects? And I used that as the model for the group to start it. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm extracting from some writer, Daniel Pink, an insight that he has on what the future is going to be like. And I start prototyping my ideas with those insights, and that produces innovation. And the group really grew and thrived from that. So I'm paying attention to what's happening in culture, and I'm fusing that with my ideas as I progress forward very actively. But your point of courage and my story of my mother's passing and this sense of impending doom. Also, I grew up in a Seventh-day Adventist family, so the second coming is always coming. Like, Jesus is coming back tomorrow. You don't know. So there's this urgency to do something great with your life, to do the work, to grow, that there's no choice almost. So it's not that I live in a world of courage. I've lived in a world of having no choice. I had to do this. I had to jump to the next thing. I had to create something crazy. I had to take risks. And I'll tell you, it's not easy being always in that edge, being always that guy who does these things. It takes, it's not even the courage, man, because the courage I have in spades. What I've had to develop over the last 6 years is the fortitude, the fucking stomach, the abs, the six-pack, spiritually speaking, the third chakra, the solar plexus. Because if you're going to live like I live in this continual state of more, of bigger, whatever it is that you want to create, and not taking no for an answer from the universe of doing it, you're going to have to build a fortitude. And part of it is not fortitude, like, because it's not that you're going to withstand it and have somebody there sucker punch you in the abs. It's actually the discernment and the wisdom to simply know how much effort to put in.
How do you do that? Is there a mental model that you use?
Yeah, is there a mental model for it?
How do you strike? So actually, it's a really key point here, because a lot of people listening to this probably are of similar mindset. We're infinite spiritual beings living human life. I want to
create,
manifest
anything,
the best version of myself, to create, to make a difference, to create companies, whatever it may be. And the pitfall of that is existential stress. I'm not doing enough. Nothing's ever good enough. Let me continue to live in the future. And then the cost of that
when I land that round of financing,
regret of the past, anxiety of the future. So how do you have that and not to be so consumed by it? I have not arrived yet. I'm never ever gonna be good enough. Or comparing to Elon Musk. Jeff Bezos, guys.
You're no Steve Jobs. The best place that I draw some knowledge, some wisdom for that is from Osho. If you read Osho, at Osho, you listen to him every day. Like for the 16 days that I was there, every night you dress in white and you watch Osho speak. But one of the things he talks about is that you're ordinary. So like we in the West get fed this thing that you're extraordinary. Here's an A grade. Here's a prize. Congratulations, you're employee of the month. Like we're always like seeking out to highlight the ordinary, the extraordinary. But the work really just happens in the everyday, right? Nobody's giving awards for like doing your bed and brushing your teeth. So the reason that he talks about that is that even as you build your practice as a teacher and as a quote unquote guru of some sort, that you have to remember that you're ordinary. So the same thing happens for like the young startup entrepreneur, and she's like really ambitious and knows that she's infinite and that she can do anything if she wants to manifest it. But then at the other end, that drive kind of like consumes you, right? And you don't shut down, or you don't realize that you're human, you're ordinary, you're in a mortal body. Get some rest, get some exercise, eat well, have good relationships, don't forget about your family. All the things that I didn't do when I was building my company. All I did was build my company. I was focused on, I got up in the morning, I walked to my office, I came home at 7:00, I ate at work, I did everything at work, I didn't really invest in my family. And that ultimately creates this horrible existential angst that at 39, there's songs written about it. Where have the days gone by? This is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful. Millennials are going through that a lot younger now. Because they're going in so hard and so hot and realizing, oh my God, this is so disappointing when they go into the workplace, and then they go do yoga teachers training and like relax for a bit, and then they realize, oh shit, I'm not supposed to be in that old system, and now what? So that's where we're all kind of stuck now that we know.
Do you feel like it's a journey to go through that? Can you like learn the wisdom from the people who
hack it?
Can you hack it? Right, exactly. Or
there is a secret to hacking it. I've been hacking it the whole time.
All right. Tell us.
So the number one issue in what people kind of like have to get all these systems in order to try something out, the systems help quell their lack of belief because it breaks things down in steps. It gives hey, we're all trying this out as an experiment, right? The guru or the person teaching you the system provides the fundamental faith in it. Right? Oh, if it worked for him, it'll work for me. Here's my testimonials. And then people are willing to try the system. But what's interesting is that it's not actually what it is, right? Whatever the tools are that work. What works is actually the system of how to teach those tools, because all the tools are universal. There's tons of different ways of doing the things that you want to do. Different paths, different flavors. The system is really what matters. That it's less about what it is. Because we have, don't go to Osho and do this India thing because that's really woo and spiritual. Go to Landmark and do it in a room with no curtains. It's the same work. It's just in a different cultural context, right? So I was agnostic to all of it. So I've experimented and tried all the different systems, how masterminds work, how webinars work, how YouTube videos work, how this works. And I just get to sense all the mechanics of all of it. And then whatever ones I want to maintain and continue kind of naturally occur.
Yeah, you pick and choose.
I pick and choose. I've never really like gone, I'm not the guy who went and researched all the online platforms and like did all this stuff. I just go, I need an online platform. Which one do I know? This one. Okay, move forward. Like I'm moving at that speed in my choices and my decisions. Okay, sometimes that's not good because there's stuff that you actually need to slow down for and that you need to pay attention to. Some of the basic fundamental stuff like financial systems and controls, etc. You should be present to those for the most part as much as you can, earlier than later. But the reason I'm saying all this in general is going back to, is there a way to hack it? I'm one that says I'm a serial experimentalist. I'm going to experiment with a few and see which ones kind of I like, and then continue experimenting further with those. And then once that it's really the system itself, like you have to take 21 days it takes to build the habits. You have to repeat something over and over again, right? I wanted to learn better yoga for myself, like so that I didn't have to depend on a teacher when I went. So I went and did yoga teacher training. Now I'm like, oh, I get it, how the system works and why it works. So in my openness and in my default state of belief and faith that comes from my very Christian, fundamentalist upbringing, I already had one of the fundamental keys to the system, which you have to believe. Because if you believe, it says it in the Bible, if you believe, then it is. And every philosophy says it.
Believe in yourself or believe in the system?
Well, you also know and get to know and understand that you're not separate from the system. Self is just this thing that we created. to be able to objectively drive our meat suit that we're driving around from a consciousness standpoint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's basically we were issued a unit. Anime is the best metaphor for this, like the whole exoskeleton thing that they put the pilot into, right? So we're the pilot, consciousness, right? We're put into this exoskeleton, and you're given a designation, male, and a number or whatever, a name, a CK, and put it into a family that's going to like craft the path of that exoskeleton. But it's just an exoskeleton. So that self that we think is like, it's just that big robot. It's the Gundam. The intention for this whole podcast that we said at the beginning was, who am I? And I keep on asking that question. It just almost strips it all the way down to love, to like all you have to be is love, right? And I know that sounds like such an accelerated pace from how do you make it work? How do you hack it to believe, to just be love, right?
Yeah.
And it's for the activation of ideas and reality. Like imagine if you're 3D printing, right? The 3D printing mechanic is that you have a resin that until it's activated by a laser, it doesn't solidify. So then basically the printer itself digitally puts a mental image of it and shoots the laser, and it only turns on in the distance of that mental image, but the object isn't actually in front of it. The object is in the computer file, in CAD data, managing the laser to where to shoot. And then the 3D object appears. So if you think of emotion as that laser, our ideas are just resin. They're just words and thoughts. And until the laser of emotion, that you believe in it, your designer believes in it, that your programmer believes in it, that your investor believes in, until you have that laser activated, which is your heart. A lot of people fake it, but most people really invest in people that really believe it, that are passionate about what they're doing. Unless you have that laser activated, which is the heart, which is knowing how to love yourself, which is knowing how to love others, which is knowing how to listen. It's being a mature adult. I mean, people think of it and try to give it all these spiritual labels and all these things, enlightenment or whatever. No, motherfucker. It's just being a mature, complete, integrated human being. Like little old Asian people that are super wise and like just smile at you and laugh like Yoda. They're just mature. Like they've been around a lot. They know nothing matters. They know that they're going to die soon. They're just like, oh, okay.
Right. So, but you were speaking about hacking.
Right.
Process. So what's the hack?
So the 3 steps are really, really simple. You have to define it, whatever it is that you want in your life. And if you don't have a vision for what it is, then I can't even talk to you about it. Like, you don't know what you want to do? Okay, great. Yeah, you have to do it. And people are afraid of it because they think people are going to judge them. Oh, you can't do that. You're a freaking, whatever, bartender. And then you have to mock it up. And mocking it up isn't like you're going to sit there and make models like a designer. Okay, if you're a designer like me, I sketch stuff out. Like, I visualize it in a form that I can enjoy and show to others. And I do a lot of projects like that. Like even my Burning Man camp, I just mocked it up in vision form and worked with some architects that we had there and came up with some really beautiful slides. And people were like, whoa, this is cool, let's do that. It didn't really exist until it existed, right? So you have to mock it up. Cities are built with architectural plans, right? All these things are important, and we don't design our own reality because we don't have those tools. Like you might not have been taught how to sketch something out in conceptual form. And then the final thing is you have to share it. You have to say it to other people. You have to say, here's my plan, here's what I'm trying to do, what do you think? And people will tell you, or yeah, or they help you and they open energy portals forward. So if everyone behaved that way, like if we were all entrepreneurs and like we all had to pitch each other our 10 slides as to what we wanted to do in our life, things would be amazing. Like, I wish I could bring that, wow, I'm saying that out loud, that level of like tool simplicity to the process of business, entrepreneurial space to everyday people. I've done workshops that bring the tools of user experience and like business planning to kids. They love it. Because they're like, oh my God, this is what I'm going to be. Great. Kids get excited about a plan, about what they can become.
So step one, have a vision. Step two, mock it up, MVP it, minimum viable product, designing, business plan, whatever you call it. So, and then step three is to share it with others.
Share it with others. So then if you look at that in terms of like how to learn other things or how to do other things, if you want to learn, I do it in the form of media consumption. So if I'm interested in how organizational systems and the dynamics of behavior and all these things, all my Netflix shows and all my YouTube shows and all the books that I start to buy start to correlate around those topics. And I become like really interested in the topics. And what I'm doing is that I'm taking snapshots and writing like notes in my notebook of just the nuggets that are affecting my own narrative. So people think that they have to learn like all these things, how to scale my business, the lean startup, agile principles, all these things before they start. I don't ever do that. I jump and Amazon delivers the books.
Focus on the next step rather than 10 steps out.
When I had the group and I had to deal with scaling staff, I've downloaded an Audible book on HR and walked every night like for an hour around, downtown and listened to it. And the next morning I'm like, I know HR. It's like the download in the Matrix. And I immediately knew that I needed to take some actions based on the book, just from the insights that I got. People are like, oh, am I going to remember the whole book? No, I don't give a fuck if I remember one word in the book, as long as I remember the sentence that gave me the answer to what I needed. So you're just basically mining for gold in there. Read the reviews, make sure, ask a friend. That's the number one thing. Ask a friend for a book recommendation. Hey, I'm trying to figure out how to do budgeting. Boom. Here's a few books people recommend.
Well, then how do you sift through the noise versus the signal?
Yeah, so this is a big problem that I see kids having, is that they love podcasts, they love consuming, and then consuming becomes the thing. So like, I don't listen to any podcast. Right now I'm listening to one podcast, Russell Brand, because I love what he's bringing into the mix. And I like him.
He resonates with you.
He resonates a lot with me. Yeah, like I love him. But the books that I have around me are just the books that I'm interested in. My only bad habit is that I go on CNN just to see if the world has ended yet. The point about it is that I'm kind of like on a Tim Ferriss style media diet most of the time, other than checking in on CNN to see some news sometimes. I try not to research unless I'm specifically looking for something. So Google is my best friend, or YouTube. I don't really get caught up in the latest, greatest shit.
Do you recommend that for others?
It's up to you. I saw Gary Vaynerchuk a little bit when he started. I read his books. Moving on. Unless somebody really recommends it and like tells me you should totally watch this, I'll say that this will resonate. I won't do it. It's easy to get distracted. Like, I'm super ADD and distractible, so I don't want to make it even worse. Like, look at where I live. I mean, I already have books. And so what I distract myself most with is writing down my own thoughts. And it starts looking like you live like a madman. But what's better to be distracted by than your plans and the things that you're creating? So I'm present to them every day. And when I see them, it gets me back to thinking. So it's like keeping me in the realm and the space of what I want to create. It's the highest thing. Like, it's even posted at a ritual level in a way on my wall, where from the top down.
Is there a process that you pick and choose to keep because we all have, let's say, thousands of thoughts every day.
Prioritization, 1, 2, 3. That is, and notice that things have numbers on it, like a 2. So prioritization, and also from user experience or from mapping things out, the things at the top are the most important, and then as it goes down, it's least important. Also, writing things really big. I write it with a Sharpie on an index card because it's bigger than a sticky, and I can read the Sharpie from far away. Because what you do when you have a war room, if you ever run an agency, this is all agency tools, is that you got to be able to walk in and be briefed on a project like this. You got to be able to see the strategy. You got to be able to see the comps. You got to be able to see the progress from left to right. And your team knows how to prepare that for you because you're the director. So you walk in and you're looking at all of it, and then you're like, okay, I'm caught up.
Yeah.
So, and then you might be doing a million projects. So you need to be able to catch up on that project immediately. That's why they call it the brief. So in business communications, people don't live in that realm because they're used to offices and terminals and computers. So I believe in this kind of counter force always to whatever it is that's taking your attention. And that's why you see all my shit be very colorful, really big, and in my home, not just at work. This guy that wrote that book, Getting Things Done.
Yeah. David Allen.
Yeah, that book is amazing. Read that. Actually, that book is referenced in Lean and it's also referenced in Agile. So everybody's just mixing everything up. So I'm an intellectual anarchist. Yes. Learn as many of the things that you want to learn tools wise. And by learning, I mean like, read the damn book. A lot of people think that they're going to watch a YouTube video and like, oh, I know how to do Agile. No, read Scrum, read the book. What inspired it? What are the principles of it? Because if you understand the deeper essence of getting things done, you can then begin building those into your other things, right? You can only mix arts and crafts when you actually practice them. So people think that, oh, this thing, they tried it for a day or two, it didn't work, and then they stop.
Right, let's talk about that. How long do you practice before you stop? Here's a counter question about that is, you try on this new system, you're bringing your ideas to reality. There isn't a positive feedback loop yet, right? So then how long do you stay in that action before you say, all right, this isn't working, isn't getting me the result I'm looking for, then you stop?
So that's the other part of the system. That the first part, defining the vision, mocking it up and saying it, is one part. But then the other part comes to accountability and to time. So that system you have to put into a circle, right? So I'm doing right now a circle, core circle, and it's just 6 people. And we're all developing and designing our own businesses and our own things together. And it's 3 months, right? So the feedback loop of the creation and the planning is happening in the context of a circle of people. When people start executing the things that they need to be accountable for, like, for example, writing a Medium post or finishing a capabilities deck with case studies that they didn't have before. The different components, we're holding them accountable to those. Once those things are done and then they're executed, they're put out, like you use your capabilities deck to communicate with a potential client, and then you begin seeing how the energy shifts there, or you create a video to start engaging your audience about a particular topic. When you're doing it with a group, with the circle, that first step, the courage to jump and do those things and have other people review it, the feedback that you're looking for, is really what matters. And as an entrepreneur, you do that with your advisors and you do that with customer primary user research. Like, you engage a customer, and you saw me doing that building the school because you were one of them. You came to the first group school ever in my office. Those were all feedback loops. I create very physical feedback loops because I have the courage to make those jumps. I had no business doing Evil Businessman, dude. The fact that it was so good and it looked so good, it was all just pure bravado. The front row and all the people that were like entrepreneurial already as creatives, because the goal of Evil Businessman was the same thing as the school, which is to make creatives more entrepreneurial, help them succeed in business. And have we accomplished that? Yeah. That prototype for Evil Businessman 9 years ago. So when you ask how long does it take to make something work, motherfucker, I work on 10-year, 15-year arcs. I'm setting up the thing back then for now.
So how did you know that was the right path, that you wanted to take that on? So ask this question very specifically because it's in the doing that you can refine your vision. Right? You can't refine your vision arbitrarily in a vacuum in some desk in your notebook. You do it, and then you get some feedback, and internally, you're like, oh, this feels good. And externally, you also get some feedback as well, right? So how did you have that level of clarity?
Yeah, that's where the whole conversation about spirituality comes in. Because the path that you're carving is not yours. So the clarity you're looking for is for your ego, is for the self, it's for you. Is this right? Is this wrong? So when you ask the question instead, is this my path or is this not my path? That's a different question. Your path is right in front of you if you turn around, because it's a kind of a reversal of your family history or of all the things you chose before. So I chose to be a designer instead of being a pastor, which is what my family wanted me to be. I chose to live in technology during the dot-com boom and afterwards live in the software realm. So pastor, designer, technologist. Then I chose to live in the world of teaching because Linda Wyman from lynda.com was my mentor, my hero. And I did the school. So my mom was a teacher. My grandmother made her being, got all my aunts and uncles educated by opening a school. And I actually did some work. I asked them for their life story before they all passed many years ago. Like 6 years ago when I started doing my journey, one of the first things I did was go back home and spend time with my family and listen to their stories. And I recorded them. And I'm like, oh my God, my grandmother, her heritage is she was a master teacher and a community builder and a church builder. And I'm like, I'm my grandmother. So when you then look at your path and at your choices, are they mine or are they the choices that my grandparents made? It's what resonates with you is what resonated. You're their child. They brought you up. Their values are in you. Their dreams are in you. As Asians and Latinos, we struggle with this issue because parents want them to be something specific and it's a projection of who they want it to be. But you end up, no matter which way you slice it, being that and always having that gap. It's like, am I being what my parents wanted me to be, or am I pursuing who I want to be? And then if you take a third way and you say, what is my path based on all of those things? And you look at it neutrally without judging your parents or judging your past, you'll get answers there. The more judgment and the more issues you can't close the loops with your parents of anger or, resentment. If you can't close the loop with your past, the healing is the main vehicle for understanding your own path. Because all those things that pain you and the things that stop you, the things that take away the courage, are fear. And letting go of that is one of the hardest parts because you have to complete with all those people. And one of those people you have to complete with is yourself. Forgiving yourself for all your mistakes, forgiving yourself for whatever it is, the divorce, the different career than what your parents wanted, being a weirdo, that anger and that resentment with whoever, with God or with your parents or with your friends or with your past or with yourself, stops you from jumping.
Yeah. A lot of people listening to this are interested in high performance. And one of the mental models that I teach them is removing your interference. Any kind of judgment, trauma, resentment, anger, anything towards others or towards yourself ultimately interferes with your present moment right here and now. And so that's what I want to underline in everything that you said. Total agreement there for sure. And also from what you just shared so far, you can actually look at your history for a very strong signal, whether it be what you've done yourself, professionally and personally, and or intergenerational, what your parents did, what your grandparents did, etc. You can actually use them as a very strong signal to think about your own path. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I call this tethering and anchoring, like in rock climbing. One of the things that I really recommend, because some of the exercises in personal development and coaching and training that you do for this is that you have people tell their story, right? So you're by every decade, like your 20s, your teens, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, just tell your story and how you felt in those times. And if you look at biographies or if you look at why people of note write their own stories, is because in the stories there's lessons and signals, right? But doing your own and then asking your dad and asking your mom and asking your grandma, like I started doing, begins to give you what I call tribal user stories or narratives. Because if you look at customer experience, right, and at developing software, we create sets of user stories and subsets of customer types. So if you do that for yourself backwards, for your life, basically primary user stories of the users in the system, your family, you'll get so many interesting insights about who you are. It's like, oh, my uncle's just like me. He's like this, like that. And I'm like, that's where I get that from. And no, it's not whether you get that from, you just recognize it in yourself by seeing it in others. And the fact that they're your family gives you this like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, bring back to another spiritual principle or saying that people say a lot is everyone is either your mirror or projection.
Yeah.
So very similar to that.
Very similar.
So let me ask you, change direction a little bit. Because if you always are looking backwards, rear view mirror, so to speak, then you are only kind of progressing very linearly, right?
Yeah.
How do you then innovate? Because Elon Musk never had anyone to say, let's go to Mars. Let's be an interplanetary human species, right? So
this is where the tethering and the anchoring comes in. Because it's not linear, it's actually trees branching. All the narratives already happened, so they already have trajectories. Forward, so innovation happens in a quantum state of all possibilities, right? So if you look at reality as a grid of different dots, like almost pixels, the ability to kind of carve, like my previous laser metaphor with
3D printing.
With 3D printing comes from two things. One, having the image of what it is you want to create, like for Elon Musk is planetary exploration, Mars or whatever. These big visions, right? And then the way forward is using basically the tactics of how he moves forward. He's doing the same thing I'm doing. He's using software mechanics, portfolio theory, and agile tools. And you research and you find out more how they work internally. There's a lot of chaos, but inside that chaos, the innovation are not necessarily the ones that are predictive.
You were addressing the how. What I'm addressing is the what, right? So meaning, when you ask, so Henry Ford famously said, if you ask what people want, they would say, I want faster horses rather than a new vehicle. So that's a jump from horses to cars.
Yeah.
So what I'm addressing is, if you just look backwards, you're going to want faster
horses
rather than innovate and do a quantum leap jump to the next level, whatever is next for you.
Yeah.
So what I'm referring to is that. Like, how do you define, all right, so now I kind of look at all my past. And I ask this question because some people who know me well and said, hey, CK, why are you always asking questions about the past? Start living the present and then invent the future, which I agree 100%. But I think what they misinterpreted my questioning is not because I want to dwell in the past, right? It's actually addressing everything you said. So it gives me clues of how my thought patterns, etc. And then such that I can innovate newly from nothing, giving all the information that I have. So going back to the original question that I wanted to ask you is then, now that the historic trend line from yourself, from your parents, grandparents, etc., then how do you identify what's the future, the vision, the next step, the vision for you?
For me personally, I do it based on customer profiles. Okay. Like I actually make some up as an assumptive that these are the three people that I would be serving in my idea or in what I want to do. And then I put them out and I get people's like, oh yeah, that's me. Or like I make adjustments. Sometimes I just interview people that are in the category.
So let me just recap real quick. So what you said is you create a profile of the people that you want to serve.
Yeah. So it's a combination of me creating a profile of the people I want to serve and meeting their needs, right? That's one. But the other one is of who I am. Like, what's my essence? Like, what am I about? So because in the intersection between my own needs and who I am, like my business goals and my essence elementally of what I can create, which would be your positioning, like what are you good at?
They call this the founder market fit.
Yeah, exactly. In knowing yourself, which is a big one, and knowing the needs of the people around you, you can really, in that overlap, you'll find what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Because ultimately, your needs are going to be sustainability to get paid, and their needs as pertain to who you are in your essence. In my customer profiles is the people just like me that were designers. That's the primary audience that I built. So that I know their needs super well because I was there. I experienced what they experienced, and that's how I created the the preliminary profiles. But then as they begin participating in the process of defining themselves as customers, or as co-creators is what I call them, I get more and more fidelity between exactly what it is that they need and exactly what it is that I need. It's just like a conversation. How can I support you? How can I support you? And that takes doing that intentionally. Like what I just described is the core process, right? The process that I developed and that I make a living from, that I sell. And it's just basic strategic planning tools. And the fundamental is that if you define who you are and you define who the people around you are, and you can find something that provides them value that you can deliver successfully over and over again, then you're in really good shape. That's the innovation happens in the no judgment of the model, right? Because what you want to deliver, the wisdom, the insights, the transformation that you want to deliver, it's delivering that. So the model will evolve. Things will change. You might not like podcasting. You might not like this, or like whatever happens as long as you're clear that the value is what matters.
Yeah, you hear this cliche a lot. The mission of a business is to solve a problem for your customers. In my younger years, when I first started becoming an entrepreneur, what I would focus on is the solution. But as the year goes on, what I realize, what I should really focus on, primary objective, is to understand the problems.
That's the hardest part.
Focus on the problems, then articulate it, then I can see how my solutions, whatever widget that I'm building, can actually fit into the problems. Because if my ideal customers don't even know what the problems are, and then you just say, here's a widget, they're going to look at you and say, all right, so what am I going to do with this widget?
Yeah. It's customer development. That's the fundamentals of it. Find out what the problem is. But listen, that requires, people to be courageous and put themselves out there and living in the unknown and living in possibility. I mean, as an entrepreneur, that early stage of figuring these things out, you need to be really present to it, because what resonates well with you because you've actually had conversations with your customers, it gets you excited and gets them excited. It builds the energy to build the thing. So engaging your customers and engaging your community in the building of your own ideas.
Is there any specific prompts or tools that you could share with the people who are listening to this to clarify what their core customer problems are? And let me say this, because if you just walk up to a random person, let's say your ideal customer, and say, hey, what's the problem? How can I support you?
Yeah, that's a little creepy. Let's play act it right now. This is a random meeting. I'm meeting you as a potential customer. What I do, and I'm creating a customer profile in the format from Core. The first, the demographic information, just age, where they're from, what they do for a living. Second, the story, like what are you up to, like where you're at right now. And in listening to that story, I can get to and jump to what do you need right now, or like what are the things that are challenges for you right now, which leads me to solutions. And I can do it all in one session, and I'll play act it with you because I do it all the time.
Okay.
What's your name?
As myself?
Yeah. Okay. I love your shirt, man. That's an awesome shirt. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Cool, man. So we're waiting in line for coffee right now. So
sure.
What's your name?
I'm CK.
CK. Cool, man. I'm Jose.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, brother.
Yeah.
You live here in Venice?
Actually, I live in Pacific Palisades.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. It's beautiful up there. Fancy.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I'm an entrepreneur.
Cool.
Yeah.
You're about 38, 36?
I'm 41.
Dang, dude, you look good for an Asian person. Well, that's actually probably you look good. So you're an entrepreneur. So what are you working on?
So I have transformational retreats for other entrepreneurs to really help them overcome their mental blocks.
Oh, man, I love that. That's amazing. Why are you doing that?
It gives me a lot of joy seeing people overcome their mental blocks and create something new for themselves, for the people that they serve.
Yeah, I built something not too dissimilar, but it's challenging. There's some interesting challenges in scaling and waiting long enough for things to start to take off. How is it going on your end? Any challenges?
Sure. Well, the challenge is to people know about this particular offer and the transformational
aspect of it,
and potentially what they can receive to grow themselves, to grow their business.
Yeah.
To letting more people.
So the awareness aspect of it. Yeah. Have you done any business planning for it?
I'm planning it every day.
Anyway, yeah. Man, I love what you're doing, man. It's pretty awesome. Are you on Instagram? Here, let's follow each other on Instagram. So I would also tell you more about my story.
Sure.
If we were really in a coffee shop and not in the middle of a podcast. But I just built a customer profile. And all the quadrants. Like I can have that conversation. That's a primary user interview, a customer interview. Now, if the I'm a nurse and you work at Pacific Palisades Hospital and like, cool, what are you working on? It'll always get to, I'm trying to launch this cannabis brand on the side. I'm like, okay. And I can relate to the entrepreneurial stuff. But not everybody's going to be a profile.
You're just being a human.
I'm just being it's not like, wait a minute, are you creating user profiles of people when you're having conversations? And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I think I am. Because it's also from a book called The Coaching Revolution. And it has this whole interview process. And so I've learned from different places to piece together. Of course, there's guides on how to do user interviews. And I've obviously done user interviews in my software practice. So I already understand the mechanics of sitting there, being friendly, making the people feel comfortable. Like, it's just not making it into weirdness.
Right.
Who are you? What are your needs? Right. Explain yourself, customer.
Yeah. Tell me your
darkest secrets.
What's keeping you up at night?
It's just real conversations. It's just being real.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's great. So change your directions a little bit. So what do you hope to achieve? Because you're constantly reinventing yourself. I know that you're also using the platform that you have to teach spiritual principles. You
outed me a little bit there at the beginning, which was one of my goals eventually. So I'll make it as succinct as possible. In looking how to help designers grow as entrepreneurs and as their own business owners, in looking at how to help startup teams work more effectively and have more success, and in looking at how leadership teams plan and enroll their customers or their teams into the vision of the company. In all those realms, I learned a lot of tools and mechanics and ways of doing it and understand that. And I could definitely go into the business of like organizational consulting and training and coaching. Right. I would be very good at that. Right? And that's part of what I am going to do next. But the one thing that stood out was just the teaching of simple transformational principles, right? Accelerate people's own personal growth than to have to deal with the team and with the other levels, right?
Right. Instead of focusing on the tactics.
Yeah. Focus on the individual people and making them powerful and making them equanimous and making them able to communicate and lead better. That would be a faster way. And that's ultimately what led me to going to New York and to working at Consensus. And that's where I got a lot of these lessons. And ultimately the Burning Man camp that I started with a few people. It's about the acknowledgement that the real way of getting the individual people to be more powerful in their work is to have them be more powerful in their own selves.
So for the skeptics listening to this, they may say this conversation to be a little bit more woo-woo, it's not very practical.
Right.
How is this going to impact their performance in life?
Look, all I can share is my own story. Sure. I don't really have any bite-sized, science-proven nuggets that will convince anybody of one way or the other. All I know is that in my video game that I've been playing for 46 years, I sought to ride that line, the wave between the material and the spiritual. And only because I was already comfortable with it. I felt okay in it. And once you start correlating them with science, you can always make the correlations between different practices and the benefits of them cognitively. And you can always break them down into 3-step hacks. You can always do those things. But if you really want to do it faster, you're going to have to let go of whatever preconceived ideas you have and certainty and like, I'm super smart, I'm analytical, I know exactly, no, this doesn't sound right. You're going to have to let go of a lot of that and just experiment and really be open to new ways. That's what I've done, and I'm where I am. And if you want a testimonial for it, it's not easy, but you become powerful and you can create your own reality. It just takes courage.
Yeah, I asked that question partially for my former self. Trained as a PhD scientist, everything's evidence-based. If you don't show me your evidence and it doesn't exist, it's not real, etc., etc. Then as I progress in my own journey, what I realized ultimately, books knowledge is great. Felt experience, it's my own reality.
Yeah.
If I feel it, then it's real for me.
Yeah.
And as I grow older, it's more, I take on more of an imperialist approach. So I experiment.
Yeah.
Then I check in with myself.
I like that.
Is it real? Is it not real? Okay.
I like
and
that.
then science aside, ultimately, if I have to really just get into the mechanics of how science works, we don't still quite understand how quantum mechanics works. We don't understand how electricity works, but we use it every day.
Yeah.
Right? So ultimately, to me, is what's practical in my life? Does it give me the result that I'm looking for?
Yeah.
If it does, I'll continue to use it until proven otherwise.
Yeah. I love that. Empirical thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I call it the iterative life. Like where it's iteration after iteration of experiments, and you're the ultimate scientist. You're the experiment. Try it out.
Right. If there's an area of your life that doesn't work, if there's a block that you experience, if there are things that you have negative charges about, if you can't take actions about your hopes and dreams, if there's anything that's stopping you, great. And that, to me, that's a boundary condition.
Yeah.
And then what kind of experiments can you overtake to overcome that boundary?
One of my fundamentals for my experiments in my life is to look at areas that I'm avoiding and going in that direction and taking the next steps and the actions, as painful as it is. Sometimes the initial part is not necessarily as pleasant as you're hoping, but there's a lot to be said for people really seek to be in hedonistic pleasure all the time. Let me sit on my couch and watch Netflix and turn on their AC and have some popcorn. And we look for everything in our lives to be so comfortable, right? So then we expect that in everything, right, in life, right? But sometimes is understanding that part of it is pain, right? I had a really great conversation with Tony Wong, my friend, about this, where he's like, yeah, it's just learning to know that pain is part of the whole. And you're like, damn. So for me, when I saw things that I was avoiding, or like, oh, I got that tingly feeling of like nervousness about dealing with it, I would then jump.
You would then jump.
Yeah.
So that was a signal to you that you should do it.
That I should do it.
Because you have hesitation and fear and pain.
Very counterintuitive, because people say, well, isn't that something that you should trust? That means that there's danger. Most things in our lives aren't like you're in front of a cliff and you have to use that logic, because that reflex is built for our reptilian brain for survival of actual death. But having a conversation with your spouse about how you're feeling and avoiding it is not a cliff. It's just emotions, right? You're not going to die if you have the conversation. It will be painful emotionally, but there's no physical harm. So that's the point. What are the things that you're avoiding and the truths that you're not dealing with? And they come out eventually. And that's part of maturity and getting older. It's like being super brutally honest with yourself, and your friends doing that with you too.
I recently finished the book by David Goggins named Can't Hurt Me. So he came from nothing and had an abusive father who beat him every day, raised by a single mom, and essentially got himself out of the condition that he was in, and really trained himself to be one of the top Navy SEALs, and was candidate for Ranger School, and then now he went on to set several ultramarathon records, and then had a world record for the most pull-ups you can do in 24 hours, etc. So one of the key takeaway that I got from reading that book is embrace so people say step into the fire, step into the crucible. The pain and the struggle is the fire. And in that fire is where you can actually burn away your limiting beliefs about yourself, limiting beliefs about the world. So that's actually what I got from,
And one thing I wanted to clarify, when you introduced me, you ended with this transitioning to being a spiritual teacher. I want to kind of loop it back. I'm continuing to teach the things that I've been teaching. It happens to be some of the ideas and some of the principles that I'm beginning to include and integrate into what I'm teaching have, parallels inside spiritual practice. But I don't have an intention to, and that goes with the intention for the podcast, like, who am I? I think my intention is to continue as a creator of things, whatever those things might be. But that the method in which you do it comes from a philosophical and from a spiritual kind of sense or aspect to it. And where it intersects with people's purpose and entrepreneurship and creativity is that really sweet spot that you can still now communicate about the more subjective and the more spiritual aspects of practice. There are a lot of people that are more conscious that are doing business today, and some people call it conscious capitalism, some people call it something else, right? There's all these different labels that are emerging, and you've been part of those communities under less of a label-y way, more in the values of the CEOs that I'm seeing emerge. Even companies that are run by older CEOs, founders, but that also have the conscious aspect of whatever that is that they're doing. And it's really beautiful to see. So there is a space for spirituality in business. There's a space for being able to align your purpose and bring humanity to business. So you can really begin stopping using the S word and really talking to the public and to corporate entities with just simply those ideas. Purpose and human aspects. When you add human to it, it's the thing that's missing. It's the spiritual part, right? Because we've kind of moved away from how tribes used to inscribe or, encode their spiritual practices into their people through rituals and celebrations, etc. Because we live in a secular kind of society. The clarification was that I'm continuing to do what I'm doing, but now merging all those things.
Yeah, bring new tools.
Yeah. So it's not because I want to avoid the label of spiritual teacher or of design teacher. No, it's what people say. I love your stuff because you also bring a spiritual dimension to it. You see? I didn't have to change who I am. I just integrated who I've become.
Yeah, one of the things I started doing is a lot of Facebook Lives these days. And from doing them, what I realized...
I love those.
...is that ultimately people who are going to resonate with me are going to resonate with me. It really doesn't matter what the topic is. I could be telling my childhood stories. I could talk about my professional work. I could talk about plant medicine. I could talk about anything. That's what I got from doing it so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So looking back in your journey, what kind of books, seminars, courses, teachers that really help you with the inflection or catalyze your expansion of your consciousness?
All of them. I mean, I got something out of everything. I mean, whether it was Osho in India or Landmark here in the U.S. or T. Harv Eker, is that his name? One of his weekend things, or whether it was management training, or whether it was agile training, or whether it was design thinking training, plant medicine, Burning Man. Like, I made everything in my life part of the experiment. I didn't exclude anything. And I haven't done everything. The call for healing is a continual call. Like, there's things that I'm healing right now. So I think that the world is your school. But you have to choose to be a student. Like, most people are in ego and in like, why should I go to India to look for enlightenment? I mean, you're not going to India to look for enlightenment, mother effer. You're going to India to learn breathing and like chakra meditation and dynamic meditation and all these cool tools that you can use to hack, quote unquote, your brain. The body is the ultimate portal, and to listen to Osho every night and to do karaoke with people from all over the world. That is the luxury that we don't give ourselves as Americans. The luxury to relax and just work on yourself. We don't do it. So my urge, and I always ask people to support the teachers and the people that are like helping them with that journey. Like you do a plant medicine thing, people show up and like take the journey. You enroll people in your journey not because of it being a product or an offering, but because, man, you are so excited to share like what it's done for you. And I mean, I can talk for hours about ayahuasca and about psilocybin and about all the different aspects of that. But
well, let's talk about that.
So that's a good transition. How long is this thing?
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute.
There's a timer. Great. All right. Short conversation about that.
Yeah, short conversation about that. Why did you do it first place, and what did you receive?
The first time I did it, I kind of flowed into it. It was almost like, this is what's next. And my first experience was a simple one. It was kind of like a call to loyalty, to Gaia, to the plants. It's like, are you with us? And I'm like, oh, mother effer, man. And I said yes. And the next one was a bigger vision. After that got really personal. And it became about healing different aspects of my past and unlocking some of those feelings that might have not been there before. And that kind of accelerates into new work that you have to do potentially. So you can get stuck in that loop. So I haven't been in it for a while. Like, I have friends who've done it 35 times. So it's this continual loop for looking for any healing or unlocking, or like it becomes a thing that you're looking for a thing. So for me, just the natural flow of it, where it's gotten me to now, I just pause and I'm looking at it as, okay, I'm spending the time integrating. Yeah. Because the last two ceremonies were really, really intense in terms of the work, and it kind of matched the intensity of the life that I would be in, right? So what I mean by that is that as you grow, you're able to then live in a slightly different reality, right? Things are happening faster, more is in flow, opportunities are changing very quickly.
You're able to see the matrix part.
You're able to see the matrix part. And most people's issues are that there's so much energy from all those open loops that it overwhelms you. So in order to be a pirate, as I say, you need to be able to sail the seas with no fear of death. So you have to develop this cool, calm, collective, not freaking out because you're not thinking or mindful of what is happening. You are super aware of what's happening and where it is that you stay in the present. You can plan and visualize. This becomes a continual routine. Like, I do this almost daily. So it's the best metaphor I can describe is like the whole teaching Kung Fu thing. Like, when you just practice over and over again the moves, right? And then one day an occasion comes up and your teacher goes, and you go, and you're just doing all the moves, right? Muscle memory. Yeah. So as you grow and as you master the different practices, whether they be through physical things like yoga or exercise, mental things like meditation and journaling, once you master the practices of masters, and that's why there's so many people online teaching all these things. Here's my journal technique. Here's my mastermind. Here's this. Because basically it's what I call a omnidirectional master school. And that's what's needed right now. And one of the things people usually ask when they take the step you're taking, becoming a master of masters, is that they question, like, why me? Like, what's this? No, asshole. Has nothing to do with you. Has nothing to do with you, with CK Lin or with Jose Caballer. Right. The reason why this is such an emerging thing is because of the system changing. That the only way that we can actually make this boat turn around, like if you actually listen to the news or if you actually see what's happening in the world, the only way to turn this boat around is that when people realize that they're creators of their own reality, that they're the ones who are going to make the future. And that message is difficult to tell to somebody who's still in an employee mindset, or is still in I get my money from the government, or is still in the centralized mindset, because we remove the dignity from being your own master through all our sovereignty. We remove that dignity so hard. And here's the thing that people don't understand, that American Midwestern values of like piety and docility and working in the factory were embedded into our education and into our religion by the industrialists themselves. Henry Ford was an amazing proponent of religion and like of education. People don't understand that they've been conditioned to be lambs. And what you're teaching and what you're exploring and what you're realizing as CK Lin is that, holy shit, no, I'm actually a creator. I can actually make my own reality and I can be powerful in that. And whatever the incarnation of that is for you, in terms of flavors, in terms of style, that's awesome because it's you. And then the other people that are on this podcast listening to it and are like, oh, I've been wanting to do that. And it will be an odd part of that is the big shift is that it's not about doing it because you want to become an expert or you want to become a guru or you want to become a master or whatever teacher. It's the realization that your own transformation, your own experimentation on yourself to reach this mastery is the content.
Right.
Because if you transform, you can do anything, right? So if you're working on it and you're sharing it with other people like you are, CK Lin, and I am, then we're not trying to like build a business and a living from podcasting and selling courses and selling kits or whatever online. We're simply masters broadcasting our journey. And if others resonate with it, great.
Yeah.
And if others are willing to give you some money so that you can continue the journey and they can get the gifts, great.
Yeah.
It's simply an exchange of value. It's simply an exchange of love. If you let go of the business model and the mechanics of it, and you have to know them and understand them and know how to put them in place, but you have to know that it's all about sharing yourself and your own transformation genuinely, like really just bearing your soul. That's the hardest part. You have to be naked in front of people all the time.
Yeah, I mean, speaking from my personal experience, the Facebook Live hasn't been easy. There's a lot of internal resistance.
I see it.
I don't know what I should say or if I should hold some part of me because, well, here's the intention is to add value to whoever's watching.
No. I mean, okay, that sounds horrible. No, stop doing that. The value is in you revealing yourself to the people. Vulnerability is about being as present as possible to what is at that point in that moment. So when you watch me do my Facebook Lives on Sunday, I'll anchor into the day. I'll say 6 p.m. Sunday afternoon. So even in the narrative, I'm actually dropping it into my day. I hope you're having a good weekend. I just finished watching like some episodes of Merlin. Like suddenly it's in my day now. It's actually here in my space, and it's in my space, right? And it's really what's behind me. And then I kind of talk about the topic and where I got the topic from. And then I break it down in 3 index cards in terms of like the 3 anchors of the story. That one was from last week. New vision, define, mock it up, say it. And I don't write what I'm going to say about those topics, but I think about them. And then behind one card for each topic, I write 3 bullet points about what is it that I want to say with define. So when I flow through it, I'm just flowing through the mechanics of showing the cards, and then behind it, it gives me the 3 topics. So it looks and feels like I am just in the moment talking about the subject matter, and I am. But I have anchors throughout it. It's just been held through the whole sequence, and I can wrap it up and end it, and people are like, wow, that's exactly what I needed to hear today. Boom, boom, boom. And it's really a fundamental loop that I've learned to create. Make it personal, drop into it from where you are, explain where it's coming from so that there's some context into that this is something that I've been thinking about. And that opens up even more so because I'm actually sharing my story. I'm openly, transparently kind of interlocking all the views, whether it be Instagram or whether it be Facebook or whether it be a Facebook Live or whether it be a tweet. I'm interlocking all of them into the same narrative because it's what's real. It's what's actually happening. So I don't see anything as online marketing or as you're just broadcasting.
Yeah, who you are.
Who I am.
Yeah.
I am the message. But you are. It's like, what? What are you talking about? You are the message. Yeah. Jesus said it really well. Don't do what I say. Do what I do. So the broadcast and you are the message, whatever that might be that's coming through you.
Yeah.
Because what's coming through you is awesome, brother.
Thank you.
You're on the journey.
Thank you. With that said, is there any call to action that you have for the people who are listening to this? What's the one call to action after everything you share, your journey, your overcoming, you're reinventing yourself, what you're teaching, what you recommend, the design principles, the having a vision, mock it up, and then share it, and all of these principles that we've covered, plant medicine. You said a lot of
Stuff.
beautiful gems. What's one action that people can take on?
Yeah, I'm saying this to myself and to you and to the people listening. Be easy on yourself. Relax into it. It's easier when it's not that you're not going to take it serious. It's not that you're not going to make moves forward and jump into action. It's not that. It's that you're going to do it progressively by matching the vision and matching the story itself as you're creating it, and then it unfolds. So what I'm saying almost is to be a little patient and to do the work of writing it down and like articulating it and sharing it with friends progressively, and be okay with that aspect of it, that early phase. And let things unfold with more gentility and less judgment. Like, be easy on yourself. It doesn't mean work less, but maybe you do need to. Maybe you're working too hard. But it means work more in tune with yourself, with how you're feeling and where you're at. And don't stifle your emotional and personal life in order to create something.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jose, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.